In fact, this session had a third colleague who was supposed to come from France, Brice Missy. He's a script consultant, but he couldn't get his visa, in fact. And he was supposed to be here today. Hopefully, in other sessions that we will organize, we'll bring him in. Myself and Mr. F.F. Young, we will be talking today more of new ideas of script development, how we really develop a script, how we go and look for our characters and seek their journeys. The second part of it will do something about pitching, how you pitch your story, how you try to sell your movie. And we have also another approach for it, which is more of you don't produce a movie and start looking to sell it. So we'll talk about that.
Yeah, good morning. Like you heard, my name is F.F. Young. I'm from Akwa Ibom. I'm a local man from Akwa Ibom. But somewhere along the line in my lifetime, I decided to go global. Ever since the internet came to Nigeria and was popularized in Nigeria, so I called myself 6FA. What I'm trying to say is that film production is a local thing, first in the individual person, then in your community. But what is happening in Nollywood is that we are not taking our local essence to the outside world. That is why we are complaining. So today, this morning, I'm going to try to see how we can globalize local themes and localize global themes. Thank you.
We will start showing an extract of a documentary. Before we start, let me tell you a little bit about the Finlab Nigeria, a project we started the beginning of this year. It's a project to support filmmakers developing their scripts, because we do believe there is a lack of script development in the country and in the industry at all. And for that purpose, our first workshop with an international expert will be by the 17th of October. We try to do it this month, as I told you, problems of visas, ability to come, etc., but we are trying to push it. Finlab Nigeria is part of We Entertainment. We Entertainment is the production company running the Wazobia TV platforms. And we came up with this project really to try to contribute, to do something different, to try to add value to the industry with this new approach, developing scripts and trying to sell them before we produce. We'll show this extract of a documentary. The documentary is about Joseph Campbell. Joseph Campbell is a philosopher, American philosopher, researcher. He has a different approach and way of looking to stories. So we extracted those 12 minutes from a long version due to the timing, etc. So we will show those 12 minutes, then we will start talking. Thank you.
Who is Joseph Campbell and why should we care? Topic that comes up a lot.
Joseph Campbell was one of the leading mythology experts of all time.
Joseph Campbell is a philosopher, a man who had this ability to see the truth in a world where we've lost sight of that in many ways.
He studied all of these classical myth traditions, and he actually started by studying Native American mythology. He fell in love with it when he was a kid. This was his bliss. And he wound up studying the Aboriginal cultures. He studied Greek mythology. He studied Arthurian legend.
He dissected and really diagrammed all of our stories.
He compared the philosophies, the mythic stories of the whole world.
All myths, all movies, all novels, all romances.
And he find this one story within all the stories that we can relate to no matter where you come from.
He recognized that in spite of all the different stories we seem to be telling, there's really only one. And he called it the hero's journey.
There must have been thousands and thousands of hero stories from every culture, but until Joseph Campbell came along, certainly I never realized how they all kind of fit together and how they were basically the same story.
I was a religion major in college. I was taking my final exam, and I had a moment where I was just gobsmacked. It's just like, holy crap, it's all the same thing. I mean, it is really all the same thing.
The hero's journey is a pattern. You can almost think of it as an algorithm that has three basic parts: separation, initiation, and return. Separation. You are in one kind of a reality, in one kind of a place, you are separated from it. Initiation. You're put into another place where you are in some manner initiated. Return. You come back.
Simple version of the hero's journey is, someone starting out in their normal protected world and then getting a call to adventure.
The call to adventure.
There's a vision, there's a quest.
It's the story of the hero enduring some trials.
Various trials and ordeals.
Meeting different obstacles along the way, people that hurt you, people that help you.
Doors will open, as Campbell would say, for you where there are no doors for others. Dragons will appear that are your dragons alone.
You get to like the innermost cave where you're really challenged, like the greatest crisis, and you find your true self.
The achievement, the glory.
But then that's not the end of it. That is to bring that back to the community.
There's a return to tell the story.
That is a heroic journey.
Separation, initiation, return. All of the adventures of the human story are in there. All the heroes, all the villains, all the gods and goddesses, and all of the knights, and all of the fantastic creatures we can conjure up in animation, they're all in there, because they're all in here. Because they're all in here. This is where they come from.
If you look at some of the greatest pieces of literature, the greatest works of philosophy, they all have what Joseph Campbell called the hero's journey.
And if you look with a piercing eye, you could recognize his outline in just about any movie or story you would read.
Star Wars, The Matrix, Harry Potter.
Wizard of Oz. That's a classic story of a hero's journey. You first see Dorothy in her natural environment, and just like out here in regular life, a person is operating in their natural environment every day and living in their house and that kind of thing, and then something happens to shake that world up. And you go on a journey in which you have to face certain tests and challenges.
Storytelling is typically about people learning something. You go to a place which is dark and mysterious. You are faced with yourself. There is a relationship between facing fear and this kind of soul game. You acquire a quality, a hidden strength, a value. Moments where somebody is tested, somebody moves to a place where it feels like a crisis point, and then they are restored, redeemed, made better through that trial. And we call them heroes.
If all of these stories boil down into one map, we can use that map because all human beings are the same, whether they're going through a war like World War II or going through a war inside. It's basically the same kind of process.
In other words, we're not separate from the characters we see in our movies and in our novels. They are us. It's one journey.
The whole idea of hero's journey, a journey of life, clear patterns to guide you through. You're born, you have a childhood, you have adolescence, and you try to find a place for you to become an adult. And you go through adventures. You struggle with your inner conflicts. And finally, you become a hero. You slay the dragons. You succeed in conquering all the demons, and you step over thresholds, and finally you have arrived. We get old, we die, but within this short span, we have to have some meaning, some reason for this existence. It doesn't have to be high and mighty and fantastic. You can have a very simple life, still go through the similar pattern.
We go out and we watch a great hero's journey movie. It's that impulse within us, that seed of potential that wants to be actualized, that's being talked to during those movies and being whispered to. It's time for you to do that. That's the story here. That's what it's all about.
There's wonderful narrative iconography for how to live life. The idea that try hard you get, the little engine that could, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can, I can. This idea that we really can do better, be better, that our greatest selves are still hidden, and that the future is the prospect of coming to terms with that self.
Dorothy had to confront her inner barriers. And so the journey she went on was not just a journey to find out how to deal with the Wicked Witch of the West. It was how to deal with her own inner resources, how to claim her own inner resources. And at the end of the movie, how did she get back home? Well, she clicked her heels together. So she had it all the time, the ability to get back home, but it didn't get mobilized for her until she went through all of those challenges and was able to kind of test herself.
It's kind of the ordinary moving into the extraordinary. It's going through the dark to come out to the light. Going from an unsatisfying life to a satisfying life by pushing through the scariest things you could imagine.
The most important thing that the myths teach us is to go beyond what we perceive as the limits of our possibility.
So mythology needs to be seen for what it is, which is a metaphor for our human existence. It's not a history lesson. It's a metaphor for life and for universal experiences.
A lot of people read the myths and they say, well, that refers to something historical, the creation of the world or something like that. But Joe didn't think that. He thought that it's really a narrative about the psyche, what Jung called the self.
The problem is that many of us are metaphorically impaired. We don't realize that this thing that they're talking about is actually a metaphor for a transformation process.
Just kind of like the Holy Grail, where it's not the thing, it's not the actual concrete grail, it's an intangible thing. But the Holy Grail is a metaphor for that intangible feeling.
And so if you look at a book and it says, you will go to heaven, and you don't realize that they're talking about heaven on earth, heaven in our bodies, heaven right now in the now, you might fall into a trance of thinking that you're literally going to go someplace else if you follow the rules.
Having been brought up in a mythical culture, I was very familiar with the different motifs and themes that were encapsulated in, say, a mythical being, whether it was the Lord Shiva or Ganesh or a goddess. Just thinking the name of that person, the whole story was evoked. Carl Jung called these archetypes. Archetypes are primordial, encapsulated stories or mythologies, and they are in this form of a seed in consciousness. When you plant that seed in consciousness, that archetypal seed, that mythical journey, then that seed starts to sprout, and as it sprouts, the patterning forces create the situations, circumstances, events, and relationships for the unfolding of the story.
It's better to have a story to look through at life than an explanation. The reason for that is the story is richer.
I say select 2 or 3 heroes and heroines, either in mythology or religion or history, and then ask these mythical beings to incarnate through you. And then don't be surprised when you see situations, circumstances, coincidences, synchronicities, relationships suddenly show up that actually are part of the story that you have been seeking to express.
So this was in fact an extract of a long documentary. It's about 1 hour something, and it's about Joseph Campbell. Joseph Campbell who discovered this. And when we talk about it, like all the stories are one story, it's something sometimes, okay, how that comes. So in a way it was explained in those 12 minutes that we extracted due to the time we had. But the main idea is to look at it and to start from there. All the stories are the same. All the stories has the same pattern to them. It's not about reinventing, bringing a new way of doing the story. We have a pattern to follow. So this is a method of developing script that we really recommend for all filmmakers to look at, to think about it, and to start researching in this area, because it relates to all human beings. Each of us has his own struggles, fears. Each of us has his own way of doing things and ability to cross the wall, the ordinary wall, to the dark and start discovering himself. What do you think? We move to? Okay, let's start. Okay, so we'll go to F.F. Young now to do some segments.
So sorry, this was done in a hurry, but I have something to say. It's very surprising to see that we have a rather thin house. I mean, we don't have a fat house today. But I want to warn everybody. In Nollywood, there's how we think about the script writer and the script. I want to say that the script writer or the script itself is the architecture of the story. You've seen the architecture, very simple architecture. It is like, I will compare it to you being born. You're born, you're delivered from your mother's womb. You grow, you start having pubic hair. If you're a woman, you start getting glances from boys. If you're a guy, you start glancing at women. You begin to experience, to discover who you are. You probably get married, build a house, and you now return to where you came from. That's the hero's journey. But today I want to raise issues about why some of us, script writers, don't delve into discovering why hero's journey is necessary. There are many formulas, but this is a well-tested and grounded formula for script writing. So I start with what, that's to say, I want to start with what motivated me to want to present this thing. I have seen movies, Nollywood movies. Sometimes I don't want to watch them. When we were here from the first day, we had all kinds of complaints and stories. My film is not doing this. Distributors are doing this, that. There are issues involved. There are so many issues involved. But the first issue starts with the story. If the story doesn't kick right, the movie is a flop somehow. So I'm motivated to say that having watched movies like Korean movies that have played in the cinemas, and having done some jobs for producers outside of Nigeria, I've come to reason that we need to discuss these issues. That's my motivation. Next slide. So the issues that I want to raise, so that we could also talk about them, is the issue of what really is film culture. What really is, when you understand the meaning of film culture, all of us as a crew, a production crew, can understand why we should produce certain films or why we should leave certain topics out of film production. So the issues are
the meaning of film culture. What is the meaning of film culture? What is film culture? Film culture doesn't just mean being a producer with a camera and your light to just shoot. Film culture means the very values that guide what you want to say to your audience, your film audience. It means harvesting what is in your locality, or harvesting what is globally acceptable and probably merging them to have a story. Hello? Okay, so our objective today is to evaluate the Nigerian culture, film culture in story directions, situate story directions in global social discourse. We've had so many Nollywood films. We produce volumes. We produce so many films. But then we seem to overlook one essential issue of either localizing our film stories for the global market or globalizing our local film themes, again, for the global market. That's why our film seems to be restricted to African market and the diaspora. As long as we sell in America or sell in the UK in the diaspora, we're okay. But I know that if we redirect the way we think about story, we could sell our films in Iceland. The Chinese, like we heard, has 60,000 screens. We could also sell our films in China without having to translate or transcribe to French or Chinese or Spanish or whatever. The next slide. So the argument is that ordinarily film emanated from, moonlight tales. Let's liken film watching. Everybody comes out to go to the cinema to watch films. Also imagine that back in your village, when some of us grew up in the village, we listened to folk tales from our elders. They told us stories about the tortoise, about all kinds of animals playing tricks on human beings and all that, So it came out from such situations. Anyhow, anywhere, all over the world. It still mirrors community social discourse. The person telling the story about the tortoise was simply relating the values of the society in terms of morals, in terms of family, talking about the family unit, talking about relationship in terms of traditions and mores, Next slide. So over time, as filmmaking took off, whether in Europe or in America, producers sat down with script writers and said, this is the way I want my story to go. It is common in Nollywood. I want to make you write this story, make it like that film. where Genevieve been happy. Is it not so? So the scriptwriter is forced to follow the producer's recommendation or advice. Otherwise, you won't earn a dime. So over time, you begin to see how filmmakers, even governments, even NGOs use film for advocacy. Every film, let me say so, every film that comes out of America or Europe, whether in China, they are supposed to. They have some level of propaganda. Is it not so? They have some level of propaganda in the sense that even when you're watching a porn film, you will see an American flag. Is it not so? Most times you see something. I know some people will deny that they have not been watching porn films. I'm sorry. You see American flag behind there, in the background or the foreground. That's to tell you that the Americans want to tell you, we are America. This is who we are. The Chinese does the same thing. This is who I am. With Bruce Lee, who went to America and became a superstar. So most films have what they call subterranean messages, underlying messages, not just entertainment. So there is propaganda in every movie, especially foreign movies, American movies, European movies, and all that, you know. Next slide. We've moved from issues. In the next, go to the objectives, please. Okay, argument. So what I'm saying is that as Nigerian filmmakers, as Nollywood, we must, as writers, begin to, reflect such moves in our stories. We cannot afford to always tell kissing stories or romantic scene stories. It is high time we move from that element of just entertaining to messaging. We're not messaging. Maybe in recent times we've started messaging, but we're not messaging. What I mean by messaging is that we must communicate who we are as Nigerians, what we want Nigeria to become. So a kissing scene can lead to a political message. A fight scene can lead to another message that you intend to. So film culture, are you going back for? So I am here to advocate that we need to do what is called thematic evaluation. Let's begin to evaluate the themes, the messages we want to send out to the public. It is not enough to always, some of the films we produce in Hollywood are meant for TV soap. I must tell you that. Some of the films, the so-called feature-length movies we produce are meant for as TVs because they're supposed to explain what we're so used to. But if we do otherwise and begin to think of new story directions, like if you watch a film like A Bridge Across the Niger, have you watched that? Then Half of a Yellow Moon. Those are Half of a Yellow Sun. Those are movies that really, really, really have subterranean messages. Next slide. So my intention is to tell her that the writer cannot afford to miss messaging. If you don't message, we'll continue selling in Lagos and probably sell in the US and the diaspora and sell in the European diaspora too. So we need to start messaging with our films. Next slide. So the Nigerian writer tomorrow must become analytical. A lot of writers don't do research in Nigeria. We don't do research. We're given, a producer will give you a story to write. And it's a story that was heard in the village. You just take the story and begin to write the script. No. Like Campbell said, human stories are all the same. Human stories are all the same. We're all created the same by God. But one thing that is common to us is our ego, our ability to relate, love, fight, win wars, and all that. Underlying that is our essence, our identity and dignity as human persons. So that dignity and identity must be messaged. So, but you see, there's a problem. If a producer in Nigeria gives you a story to write, he wants you to just write the story the way he wants it. Sometimes people like me will write too much. And they will tell me, you write too much. This is a simple story I wanted. And people like me will not have jobs. You understand? So that makes a writer, you begin to ask, who is the Nigerian writer? What is his fate? How is his life? Is he fallen? Is he making money? Is he doomed? Or is he a star? There are some star writers in Nigeria. I know that a lot of you don't know me, but I write. So some of us don't have jobs because we refuse to toe the line of producers, because we know what we want as writers. Next slide. So going back to the slug line, we'll go back to the slug line. The slug line says, Nigerian film story directions and screenwriter craft resist critical researches and analysis of themes and objectives as contemporary writers fear cost. You know, when you begin to examine topics that are too heavy for the Nollywood audience, you fear cost. They give you a war scene to write, and you begin, probably, I've written a script about Isaac Boro. I've done a biopic script about Isaac Boro for Peace I Am. The first script I did was a documentary script. I wasn't very experienced then. By the time I gave her back the script, she called somebody I think somebody came in from the UK, and the person read the script and said, no, you cannot produce this. This is too much for you. The cost is very high. So, but what I'm trying to say is that at a point along the writing journey, the producer and the scriptwriter should get together and begin to discuss about cutting down costs. You understand? Like, a war film need not be a war front shoot. You understand? A romantic film can be a war film. I don't know if you watched this TV series I used to show in the UK TV called Enemies at the Door. Have you watched it? Has anybody watched it? Enemies at the Door. It was about how the Germans conquered certain parts, or I think France or so, and they were always there. But people were living their own normal life. People were born, people fell in love, got married, had families, but the Germans were always there as an influence, like gods. So every move you made, they will ask you questions. And if they discover that you are a spy, you'll be shot. So a war film need not be about shooting guns or flying planes or jets and bombing areas. It could be just normal life. But the influence, the underlying message behind the war film will be there. Like Germans watching you, like DSS arresting Sowore just because he's making a simple protest. You understand? So at a point along the writing journey, the producer and the writer should always get together. I'm doing a job currently. Every time I finish an act, I send it to my producer in the UK. She calls me on WhatsApp, and we discuss and discuss and discuss. I just finished the script last week. I sent the whole thing back to her. She's still reading it to know where we can, see loopholes, to know where we can add and patch and remove. That's how the journey should be. So today, basically the questions I want to ask is, what should be the recurring objectives in our contemporary Nigerian film story directions in the 21st century? What are the dominant storytelling and screenwriting themes in Nigerian films in the 21st century? We all know. What should be the recurring, we pass this please. What pertinent crafts should screenwriters have to reflect on the unavoidable socio-cultural and political economic demands? Big English. The unavoidable socio-political and political economic demands. The message the real thing I want to stress here about Nollywood movies, which Nollywood movies should start embracing, is political economic demands. Nigeria is a boiling pot, we all know. Fulani herdsmen killing people. Nigerians getting killed in South Africa. What else? Our president is too slow. What else? All kinds of things. Why do we get into these arguments? Because we all want a piece of the national cake. Is it not so? We all want a piece of the national cake. In South Africa, people got there to have a piece of the global or South African cake. And they're getting killed. Now, I'll tell you a story that I've tried to create recently. A South African company, you can call it MTN, in Nigeria, has an office in Abuja. A Nigerian works there. Now, there's a South African lady in South Africa who falls in love with a Nigerian guy. Maybe through WhatsApp, maybe Facebook. So the Nigerian guy pulls out of the company, goes to South Africa to marry the woman. Meanwhile, the woman is still working in that company. He goes to South Africa, he creates his own company. And the woman helps her. So the parents' company in South Africa now say, you cannot do this. You cannot come to South Africa and do the same thing we're doing in Nigeria. So the xenophobic attack starts in South Africa. His house is bombed. His neighbors harass him every now and then. So that is still about the killings in South Africa. You understand? So what I'm advising is, when we write stories, let's think of the larger picture. If you don't think of the larger picture, you cannot sell beyond African markets and diaspora markets. You need to sell in Iceland. You need to sell in China. The Chinese are going everywhere all over the world with the ancient Silk Road, building bridges and roads, railways, but the Chinese, we know, are very cunning. But what is their basic philosophy about going about developing other societies? Is that they want to create one humanity, have one humanity, create harmony among human beings all over the world. But we know, as much as the white man did from the white man from the Western world did, that the Chinese are also embarking on economic imperialism. So what stops us from doing a Nigerian story that portrays Chinese imperialism? Instead of just doing a lot, we can have a Nigerian woman fall in love with a Chinese man, then she begins to understand what the Chinese are doing in Nigeria. I'll tell you a story about the quarrying in Calabar or in Cross River. I have somebody who works with the tax office, Federal Inland Revenue. They go to the site to get tax from the Chinese. And what do they get? They get beatings from the local people. The local people beat them up. Why should you come and get tax? Do you know why they beat them? Because they're having a piece of the cake. The Chinese bribe them. The Chinese bribe the local boys. So if you come to collect tax, they will beat you up. That's the economic, political economy I'm talking about. So there are stories to write. So many stories. A lot of foreigners come into Nigeria. They marry Nigerian women. Nigerian men go abroad. They marry white women. They marry whoever they marry. They come back to this country. It is like a story my producer told me. She said that in the American embassy, there was a woman, a female spy that worked for the CIA. Another guy that worked for the Ghanaian Security Service. They met, they fell in love. The woman started vomiting everything that the CIA was doing in Ghana. How they planned to topple Jerry Rawlings. The thing leaked. The woman was arrested. So before you know it, the guy traveled to America. America captured him. If you don't release a woman, we will release a man. So that's his story. So we should think of stories in the larger picture and begin to do stories that will sell anywhere, anytime. Next slide. So how should an average screenwriter have a problem-solving collaboration with the producers? I've just told you, everyday communication. Some producers believe that when they give a story to a writer, that is a god. I'm not a god. We all have the same reasoning capacity. Some of us are more brilliant than the other. But then, there's supposed to be continuous collaboration between the producer and the writer. Otherwise, the story falls flat. Why do screenwriters in Nigeria fear critical research on themes, objectives, and premises, which should enrich and embolden their craft and truest output in low and high concepts? There are two. What I've noticed in Hollywood is that most stories are low concept. They are low concepts. What is low concept? Just ordinary story without that big backgrounding message. I've just told you about how an American spy fell in love with a Ghanaian spy. And it boomeranged to something else. So we should think about, why do we fear? How should Nigerian screenwriters compare? Next slide. No, sir, you've gone very far. Compare and analyze screenplays in screenwriting workshops to improve craft and empower them, just like what we're doing. Many times, I'm supposed to be a member of the SGN, but I'm far away in Calabar. I don't see any reason why SGN should be a national thing. It shouldn't be. It should be a localized thing. There's supposed to be democracy. Otherwise, some of us will go to Aso Rock and look for money and come back and fight. So we should have local SGNs where, like in America, you have the freedom to join the national body or you just be in your New York SGN. So we should, democratize SGN so that we can have local workshops to discuss stories. Film One said they're looking forward to have regional cinema houses. Fantastic. And they were talking about democratizing the space of distribution and exhibition. Fantastic. That is to say, when you begin to establish such cinemas and you have AGNs in localities, in those localities you can begin to do peculiar stories. Like up to today, no story has talked about the ingenuity of Aba people in Aba, to build engine blocks. Nobody. Nor the business ability of Abriba people. Nobody. Why? So these are stories we should begin to talk about, to tell. What are the pertinent themes and objectives that Nigerian film culture should explore to reflect Nigeria's 21st century political economy, so to say? I've said it all. Let us do stories about Abacha. Buhari, we don't need to mention him. Let us do stories about Atiku, we don't need to mention him. Let us do stories about herdsmen, we don't need to mention them. Let us do stories that talk about Nigeria. Let us do stories that dignify Nigeria so that, like they arrested 80-something people in America or wherever, we begin to polish Nigerian image. Let us see the good side of why Nigerians go out and commit crime. Yes. So it shouldn't be about Nigeria. Nigerians are very bad people that are drug dealers. Let us also see the good side of drug dealing. Have you watched Scarface? Yeah, if you watch Scarface, Cubans were expelled. Some criminals from Cuba were taken from Cuban prison and sent to America to pollute America. That is the story of Scarface. That's the story of Scarface. A larger political story that is told in a personalized way. So what should be the recurring objectives in blah, 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 blah? Consider... So we should consider Nigerian storytelling like an evolving machinery. We should not be stagnant in always talking about kissing stories, bedroom stories, stories about cheating husbands and wives and all that. All that could be embedded in the larger picture. I believe so. I think so. I really advocate so. I evangelize so. Otherwise, we'll continue crying that we are not making so much money at the box office. So if you compare Nigerian film to Nigerian music, something has really happened to Nigerian music. When D1 and, is it Kenny, brought up Two-Face Idibia, Nigerian music changed. Because Two-Face sang a different thing. He probably wasn't like Fela, but I believe that somehow he followed Fela because the guy sang in Pidgin English, mixed with grammar, sang in Ibibio, Mfana Ibaga, he did all kinds of things. That's evolution. And today, if you go abroad in America or the UK, you hear there's a genre of music called Afrobeats, not even Afrobeats, Afrobeats. It's a learning, it's a lesson from Fela as an icon. So why should the movie industry not be like Afrobeat? What I'm saying is that we should evolve in national film identity, a national film culture. Instead of having Nollywood, having Kannywood, having Yorubawood. Okay, it is good to have all those, but we should be able to have a national film culture that talks about Nigeria, that dignifies Nigeria, identify you as a dignified human being anywhere you go in the world. That's my advocacy. Next slide. So in that context, we should have a national intellectual direction in storytelling. A national intellectual direction in storytelling for our films. We should indulge in research. We should discuss stories. We just saw Campbell. Campbell says, you get separated from your mother's womb, you grow pubic hair, you encounter obstacles, you become a married man or woman, you have children, you build a house, you become old, and you die. You go back to the origin. That's the hero's journey. And in dying, where are we going to? We go back to God. Some of us who are Christians and Muslims, we believe that if you're a good Christian or a good Muslim, what happens to you? You go to heaven. That is our Elysee. That is our goal. Is it not so? So that's how it should be. So we should, continue discussing film intellectually. It looks like in Nollywood, everybody is afraid of the intellectual input into story writing. You can't give me a story from my village and I'll just give it back to you the way it is. No. I must research. There's a story I'm supposed to start writing for somebody. It's about a girl in Cross River whose elder sister, had blood cancer. And the father loaned out the girl to a creditor and got 600,000 naira to go treat the girl of blood cancer. And the girl died. When the girl died, you know what happened? The younger sister remained in slavery. The younger sister remained in slavery until Naptip got wind of her suffering and took the enslaver to court. But that's the story. I had to research what is human trafficking. Did they enslave the girl or not? I had to look for samples in Saudi Arabia where women go to become housemaid. In Europe, where anywhere in the world where we go to, we are exported to go and work as home carers. I had to research. So, and in so doing, I was able to extract information about what really is enslavement in modern times. And you know what the girl did? To make the man's 600,000 naira go like that, the girl started sleeping around and became pregnant. And the guy was mad. Why did he spoil my business? So that's a way of, taking an original story and adding salt and pepper to have a larger picture. Next slide. So it will continue to, by doing so, we move from low concept story directions to high concept story directions. We begin to embrace encompassing stories. Like you could talk about an Igbo man who goes to Iceland and adapts to cold. Igbo people, they adapt anywhere. In recent times, they become headsmen. They kill a Catholic priest and become headsmen. So that high concept issue is lacking in Nollywood. I don't know if I'm wrong or right, but from my experience in watching Nollywood films, I enjoy. There's one film that really, really shook me to my bones. Perfect Picture. Have you watched it? Well done, ma. I tried befriending you on Nollywood. You ignored me. Well done. I love that film. You know why? The moment the two confess, I used to know you. Your mother used to sell akara in her backyard or in her school gate. That was I actually shed tears. I'm telling you. That was a good story. It shook me in a sense that it took the larger picture of what Sululere is all about. And it took the romantic story between these people and meshed it right there. That's the high concept. So if you've never lived in Sululere, or if you've lived in Sululere, it would shake you like it shook me. Because I've lived in Sululere for almost 10 years. And I've experienced the life that they express in that movie. It's not about the thuggery that happened. It was about the recognition. Oh, you belong in the hood. So you are me. I'm you. That was the larger picture. That was the message that shook me. So, like I said before, we need to evolve a national story direction. We need to stop talking about Nollywood. We need to start talking about, anyhow you want to call it. We need to have a national film culture apart from Nollywood, which some people perceive as English movies in Nigeria. Yorubahood, which is founded on Yoruba culture, or Kannywood, which is founded, on Hausa Fulani culture. We need to have a national messaging device. What I'm trying to say here is that if we should not rely a lot more on the commercial interest of selling movies in Nigeria and the diaspora, Nigerian diaspora alone, we should think of selling our movies anyway. We can sell our movies in Antarctica. If we start embracing high concept. Like Campbell said, our stories are one as human persons. So no matter what the culture, whether it is Igbo culture or Yoruba culture, it's about the same journey. So we should take messages that embraces humanity and begin to tell her stories. So I want to talk about, there's a story I'm trying to write. It's called My Body Parts. My Body Part is a story driven by suspense, fueled by self-will, romance, and political maneuvers. Next slide. Well, next slide, please. Next slide. So, in looking at, I made a mistake, I'm sorry. Half of a yellow sun. In looking at half of a yellow sun, you can compare half of a yellow sun to My Body Parts. My Body Parts. When half of a yellow sun was about to be released in Nigeria, government quarreled. Who's from censorship board here? Censorship board? Censorship board said, no, you cannot release this movie now. So they had to censor. They had to bargain before the movie. Why? Because of the political connotation, Biafran political connotation. You understand? But it was, that movie sent out a message worthwhile, just like a bridge across the Niger. But what that movie did was to show how the Igbos survive amidst all the problems of the Civil War, all the strife in the Civil War, all the death in the Civil War. Some of us were not born in the Civil War. I was born during the Civil War. And I knew when my mother used to run with me, we run. You know. So if you were born during the Civil War, you understand what I'm talking about. But then even within that Civil War period, there was love, romance. People got married, people flirted, people fornicated, they did all kinds of things. Soldiers commandeered women. You know, a soldier will come to your house and see your fine daughter. You just grab her. And some women will willingly follow. You know why they follow them? Because in that wartime, there was scarcity of food. So if you are going with a soldier, he will just take you to a market stall and you take what you want. Anything you want. Nobody will protest. Nobody will raise a finger. So, Half of a Yellow Sun actually portrayed that. So, if we take the development of body, next slide. If we take the development of bodies, My Body Part, My Body Part happens for a cause. My Body Part tells the story of a leadership cause obsessed ex-Niger Delta militant and female activist filmmaker. She risks missing a music star's love, devotion to get her benevolent guardian elected against a desperate guilt-driven ex-governor's plan to impose a successor. It's about Akwa Ibom, where I come from. It's about Godswill Akpabio. But this is not talking about Godswill Akpabio directly. It's simply saying that Godswill Akpabio was wrong in imposing Imam Udom on us. But I had to find a way to make the story more entertaining by adding romance and music. So this girl, next slide. This girl has a mother, Yoruba mother in America, in Atlanta. Because the mother is an intellectual activist who keeps on talking about Nigeria, who keeps on talking about doing why Nigerians should do the right thing, about politics, about leadership. The girl left her mother in Atlanta, came to Nigeria, or let me use present tense, comes to Nigeria, joins Niger Delta militants to fight the deadly Nigerian army. You understand? Then somewhere along the line, she likes Nsima Ikere. You know Nsima Ikere? You know Nsima Ikere? Who contested under APC. She likes Nsima Ikere. She hates Akpabio. I'm sorry I'm using the names, but I have to use them so you understand. So she likes Nsima Ikere and wants to help Nsima Ikere succeed Udom Emmanuel. So she now decides that she wants to make a film that would praise Nsima Ikere not so that Udom will not succeed Akpabio. Meanwhile, she has a boyfriend who is a musician. So there's a combination of romance, love, and politics. That is high concept. But then we see politics playing out. You know, I know I've seen some Nollywood movies that, portray people falling in love under the, background of politics. I've seen some movies like that. But what I'm trying to say is that if you look at the elements of this story, they are founded in many regions of entertainment: music, romance, and politics. That is high concept. So, in I have a way of creating stories so that I will understand my story. I don't just pick stories and begin. If you tell me a story and you want me to write a script for you, I devised a means, a machinery to analyze stories, understand what the story is all about, and begin to part, subtract, add, so that I can have a firm grip of the story. One of the ways I do is to know exactly what I'm doing. I could say my program is for television. I could say my program is for a feature-length movie. Then I have my genre. Then I line out my themes. In this case, the title of this story is Veronica, Kid with Attitude. So I line out my themes. This theme of this story talks about community. That is human community. It talks about civics. Civics is, educating you, telling you how to be a good citizen. You pay your tax, do the right thing. You don't pee on the roadside. In the UK, if you pee on the roadside, they arrest you also. so most of us pee on the roadside. You don't fry a car on the roadside and sell to us human beings. Or you don't use expired engine oil to fry a car. Or you don't use hypo to make fufu. These are civic concerns. Then another theme is mutuality. The next slide. So by using this machinery, the next step is what are the objectives of my story? Why do I want to tell this story? Why do I want to tell this story? So as a writer, I must know why I want to tell this story. If I don't know how to tell this story, I'm heading nowhere. I'm just telling a story. I need to tell a story that will go beyond mere entertainment. I need to tell a story that will pass messages. So a lot of my objectives, in this case, I define that I need to define the environment, the situation, which is a high school. That I need to demonstrate what the school community should impress on outsiders. We know that a lot of schools in Nigeria are being used as cheating centers, not examination centers. I have a friend of mine who has a school in Calabar. People go to him, how we go take use your school and make our children pass exam? He said, no, thank you. Sometimes he passes about maybe 5 or 6 students every year. High standard. We need to impress civics. We need to tell, with this story, we need to tell people what to do as good citizens, not as evil citizens, using hypo to make fufu, doing all kinds of things just to make money. We need to demonstrate how civics develop a living principle. These days, people don't flock students. I don't know if they still flock students in school. If you dare it, you're in trouble. But I know that at my friend's school, they beat students, no matter who you are. They will beat you. So this is to inculcate in students, principle and beneficial lifestyle in high school community, to become one another's keeper. And also feature an outstanding school kid who demonstrate focus on scholarly and principled lifestyles. Because we don't discipline students anymore in our schools. Some students just go to school, they come out of school, and he asks a graduate, what is your name? Or a graduate doesn't differentiate, doesn't know the difference between a plural verb and a singular verb. You hear things like, the peoples are, doesn't know what they are doing. You hear English like that, which is bad. I see it on Facebook and I want to cry. So, in the long run, another element of my machinery is the premise. The premise is the analysis of the theme. The premise is the analysis of the theme. If I talk about community, I say the premise of this story is the principle of integrity in Nigeria's school system is achievable by building charismatic individual standards to secure scholarship and industry. That's my premise. That's my argument. That is what I want to pass. That's the basic message that I want to pass. That's what I want to tell my audience. Whether they're entertained by the movie or not, that is the message. So we should be able to understand our theme. If we don't understand our theme, we're heading nowhere. Okay. All right, sorry. So, can you go to slide... can you go to slide... Can you go to slide 75? Let me round up. Yes. I'm running up. I've passed all the messages that we needed to hear. Mm-hmm. Slide 75. Why do Nigerian writers fear critical research on themes? Why do we fear? We fear because of the culture in our production, in our film culture, because of our film culture. We do not understand our world is pieced together and enriched by cultural diversity, though driven by commercialism. We want to make money in Nollywood, but we do not understand that an Igbo man can go to Iceland or North America and become an Eskimo. Is it not so? An Igbo man has some Igbo people, some Igbo boys, bad Igbo boys have become headsmen in Anambra, Anambra or someplace like that. So we do not understand the meaning. We should consider localized meaning. From the beginning I said we should learn to transfer local meaning. We should learn to transfer local meaning to global meaning. That means, I'll give you a good example. The Amazon forest is burning, and ecologists or environmentalists say that 20% of the Earth's oxygen need will be reduced. Have you heard that news? Okay, so I had to devise a story. I thought of a story like, okay, there's a Yoruba god in Amazon who protects Brazilian blacks. Are you listening? You understand? There's a Yoruba god or goddess in Amazon forest who protects African Brazilians, Afro-Brazilians in South America. So as the forest burns, the spirit escapes and returns back to where it belongs. He or she incarnates into a fine gentleman or a fine lady. And he looks at Nigeria. Nigeria is a messed up place, and the spirit is angry. And the spirit starts punishing Nigerians. That's the concept. That's the concept. The spirit is angry. This is not what I left when I went away. Of course, it's fiction. It's fiction. I agree with you. There is non-fiction stories, there are fictional stories, and also, and there is faction stories. This is faction. I took a fact from somewhere and I created a story to pass a message about environment, about a spiritual dignity and identity. So the next one is that we misplace storytelling context for identity, pride, and dignity in material visualization than mental impression. Campbell said, the hero's journey is here in your mind. You wake up, you're a superstar. Maybe you're a baby, and you grow up and become an adult man. And community wants you to achieve something for the community. They push you, you refuse. They push you, you refuse. Finally, you go ahead. So, what you don't know as a person is that it has come as a calling, a personal calling. That is, some people say it is your star. Your star is shining now. So you begin to do what? Evolve as a human person. You go on that journey. Is it not so? To solve community problem, but you're also solving your own problem because you're maturing. Is that clear? So that journey, so we should stop. Nollywood is fond of big cars, good buildings, fine women, fine clothes. We should go beyond that and begin to think of stories, Thank you.
I would like to continue from the last sentence, which is we should not beautify the stories and really carry facts and fictionalize them to come back to our community with values, new value to the community. What Campbell said was three main points that carries the structure of any story, which is separation, initiation, and return. The idea of separation from your real world, the world we are living, the world that others taught us to live it, which is the way we are driving cars, the way we are dealing with other people, the way we are eating, the way we are drinking, the way we are looking to life. This is our ordinary world. The separation comes as a call to adventure. The adventure F. Young was talking about is you move from this real world, you move your hero, your character, from this real world into a struggle, a conflict, to face his fear, to face his very annoying issues from the society. This is the value of the writer that brings to any script. You take all of those ideas and you marry them to the script, you marry them to the actions of your characters. And they have to be realistic, meaning characters should act according to the way we are presenting them. We cannot ask somebody who looks like, who appears in the beginning of the movie with a suit and a tie, and he's a very nice guy kissing his boys and girlfriend, etc. And we cannot ask him to be in the next street begging or asking for help for a reason. We have to be realistic on the way we are presenting our characters. They can do things and they cannot do certain things. So it depends on us as writers to decide what value we are adding for each character, what's the messages we are trying to achieve, and to do it in an intellectual way, meaning like we have to respect our audience. We don't need to just push their very obvious things. For example, I'm watching lots of movies, Nigerian movies. I'm realizing things like 99% of the scenes are indoor. And it's like life is not happening indoor. Life is happening everywhere. So it's like, yes, it's a production issue, but we have to go beyond that. Writing a script, for example, yes, there is a way to write the script because you have a lot of people working with you. They have to understand it in a certain way. You have to put the ages of the characters you are talking about. The suspense is on the screen, not in the screenplay itself as a written script. So it's like there are standards of all of those things we should look at and see how things are done. Introduction of movies are very long. There is an obvious formula that we introduce our character and we start the call for adventure in the first act of the movie. Every movie is 3 acts. And the first act, we should introduce our characters. The second act will not begin until we realize this call for adventure or to adventure. When we bring our character to the call to adventure, he has to struggle. He has to transmit those feelings to us sitting on the sofas or seats in the cinemas just to feel what he's struggling about. Intellectually, we have to feel it. When we saw Rocky in that presentation running and happy to that he will achieve, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it, it reflects all of our feelings inside. That's why we enjoy movies in general. When we see the characters communicating to us, communicating to our inner feelings, showing us that, yes, we look like you. As been said also, that those heroes on the movies are us. We are the heroes, looking at those characters, dominating to them because they relate to us. They are doing the things we do. They are facing the struggles we are facing. They are overcoming them, and that's why we enjoy it. We like to see people struggling in movies is entertaining us in a very strange way, meaning like if somebody is struggling to achieve a goal and he is succeeding, we feel that success. Because it was built right, because it was delivered to us in a right way that respects the way we are thinking. So this hero's journey is as a matter of fact, if you look at it, yes, it's a fact. All the stories are the same. It's one story, one way of telling the story. It depends on the elements inside the story. And here comes the importance of bringing the Nigerian culture into those stories. The question we should really ask, okay, we have to create high concepts. We have to create high concepts. Okay, how to create those high concepts? It's a very simple idea. The simple idea is looking to the messages and values and make our characters achieve them, deliver them in an intellectual way. It's not to appear on a screen and deliver. It's not a TV show. It's not a news. It has to be action. It has to be consequences of that action. What happens? And this is the way we are telling stories. Storytelling is about people learning things. So what we are doing in movies is telling the story of somebody who struggled to learn something and brought back the outcome of that learning process to his community. Simple. If you look to any story, it's this formula. It's someone went into a struggle to learn something that redeemed him with a value. He took this value to the community. This is the simple thing. And when we say community, it's what you create as a writer. You create the world of any story. If you look to movies, there are movies like in the very far future, in the very ancient world that we never seen, in the realistic world we are living. There are various worlds that you can create. You can create your own world. The beauty of cinema is the fact that you create the vocabularies. You set them up the moment we come to watch. We enter the hall, your movie starts, we start to learn. You educate us. You tell us, this chair, if you sit on it, it's a powerful chair. It gives you power. Oh, okay, how is that? So you set it. You decide for us what's possible, what's not possible. And this way, you infuse every message you want to tell us, every value you want us to leave after the movie, carrying in our minds. This is the thing about movies. It's not about certain characters just shouting there and trying to make it, okay, I'm very good, I'm very comic. It's not that. It's the value you are bringing us. They are telling us there are 5 minutes. Okay. Let's jump to the second session. Cool. Okay. So let's open questions then.
All right, good morning once again. Stephen is my name. I want to appreciate the time for this. This is very, very detailed. I hope that we'll have access to this slide after the summit, as it were. I have about 2 observations. The first thing is that at a point in the course of your, you omitted about 2 or 3 slides that had some Nigerian titles, wedding party and all that. I don't know, maybe it's deliberate or something, and I feel that we'll be able to relate with that, depending on what I have.
What I really meant was that these movies redefined Nollywood. These movies redefined Nollywood in the sense that they created what I call new Nollywood. They created new Nollywood. In the past 2 days, we've heard about how producers had come together to collaborate. We heard about how people put money, private investors put money. I think this should happen often and often in Nollywood. And how would it happen? It can only happen when we begin to look at high concept stories. Do you understand? Wedding Party is high concept. Why? It shows Nigeria's identity, maybe Yoruba or Lagos identity. It portrayed us so well. Do you understand? Despite all the crises, despite all the conflicts in the movie, it portrayed us well, and people loved it. So these movies that are listed they really defined Nollywood. So why can't we begin to embrace that sense of newness. Do you understand? And begin to evolve further and produce movies that are even better than that. That's what I meant by listing them. I made a mistake in saying Half a Yellow Moon, Half a Yellow Sun, sorry, which is a Civil War story. I included Chinwe, what is his name? That featured in 12 Years a Slave. If they could do such a slave story. If you watch the movie, you will see what they did to us back there. We could do the same thing. There's still slavery in Nigeria. I know that many housewives treat their house helps like rubbish, like trash. And somebody made a statement. Somebody was dropping me yesterday in Mafoluku. He made a statement that in Nigeria, we seem to lack a sense of humanity. And I was wondering how. That in the Western world, people from, adolescents understand the meaning of human rights. That they don't maltreat people. And I was going to tell him no. That even the white man still enslaves the whites. Forget the fact that we go there, they enslave us. They still enslave themselves. So it's a human thing. So if we can take that concept of abuse, which is very common in Nigerian homes, where a housewife will use broom or whatever and beats the house help to coma. So we can embrace stories. So those movies redefined Nollywood and into what I call new Nollywood. So we should move away from the old Nollywood, which was about just taking story from the village, plaster it there. I want you to do this film because Genevieve did this, so do it that way. It's all wrong, but you should be able to evolve and evolve and evolve. You understand? Is this The Lion? This is her latest film. It's a good movie. I'm not saying it's bad, though. Maybe because the big budget is good. But it could have been better. People say it's just a Nollywood story. I don't want to believe it should be just a Nollywood story. It should have been more than that with all the money she got. And the number of scriptwriters she had on that story. It should have been better than that. Because she has the means. Thank you.
Okay, my second point is that, though towards the end, I think you bellied it eventually. High concept thematic trust, against, pitching it against low concept thematic trust, as it were.
I'm not against low concept.
Yes, my point is that, is it at the end now, looking at what the audience wants, now the issue of comedy now seems to be the new discourse in Nollywood, that if you have a particular story and you are not saturating it with a lot of comedy and all that, you probably not hit anything close to box office.
There's nothing wrong in telling comedic stories, but there's something also wrong in making comedy like it is your lifeblood, the blood in your body. You see some comedy and I want to vomit, I will say it here. If you like, knock me. You see some comedy. There was comedy in a movie, but why did it hit me in the guts? It was that moment of aha moment, that moment of discovery. This is Sulere she's talking about. But we saw all kinds of comedy. Was it not so? You see comedy, the Togri, the area boy, Razmataz. But then it hit me in the guts when I discovered that this is about Sulere. That's high concept. It should shock you. It should hit you in the guts. So you feel the story. If you don't feel the story, if you just laugh and go out somewhere, have a bottle of beer and go to sleep and look for somebody to talk to, it is not there. It is wrong. It's lost. The story is lost. You just like having a bottle of beer and emptying it and putting it in an empty bottle and say, let me go and sleep. It is lost. It has no message. But that story hit me here because it was about Sulere. What's the meaning of Sulere in Yoruba? Patience. She got pregnant for the guy. A guy she wouldn't date. But then somewhere along the line, she discovered that this is my guy from the hood. That is what brought tears to my eyes.
Okay, good. Are we still in the morning or afternoon? Good or in the afternoon. Good morning, everybody. My name is Stanley Hikwari. I'm a filmmaker. I just want to punctuate some things. When you talk about high concept movies, I can see too many filmmakers here who conceive and even produce high concept movies that never got into the cinemas. I saw Tattoo. If Tattoo wasn't high concept, I don't know what high concept is. It's a great movie. But it's a huge struggle to get high concept movies into the cinemas in Nigeria. The distributors are here. They will tell you it's business for them. High concept. The deal is what will get the viewers and the audience just excited from beginning to the end. High concept movies don't get you excited from beginning to the end. They are intellectual. They are philosophical. And we've groomed an audience that is not now patient to get the subtext in movies, but they're just looking for actual action, people shouting, things happening. That's it. That's the culture we've created now, unknowingly. So the real issue is that what we lack is artistry. We don't treat film as an art. Art is art. I'm a painter, for instance. If you're practicing Baroque art or Renaissance art or whatever, there are principles behind it, and all those things are what show up at the end of the day when you see the painting hanging on the wall. But when all those things are not being appreciated and they are not seen as economically viable, then you cannot really continue doing that. I'm surprised you didn't say anything about short movies. Short movies are the fastest ways to express everything you've talked about.
Yes.
I've made more short movies in my life than features because every time I have this idea in my head, something disturbing me, I make a short movie to express it. I'm not expecting to make money out of it. But the deal is that if you decide from the beginning that I'm putting so much money into a movie and I need to make my money back, then you have to, like slide 3, on Monday, they said, listen to your distributor. And I fought with that assumption or that assertion for so many years till I left the spot where I was just a creative guy and I became enlightened as a business in the business of filmmaking. You have to listen to the distributor because at the end of the day, they have the indices and all that. But nevertheless, some movies come and they do beyond what even the distributors anticipated. So in conclusion, I'll just say we need to treat films as art, number one. Number two, the research part is something you cannot overemphasize. Whether you are telling a story from the past to make the foreign world understand our culture and accept it, you have to research. You want to tell something that is contemporary. In Hollywood, what they do is they tell you, Hollywood movies that are blockbusters at the moment are movies that are talking about issues that are happening around you right now and issues that are about to unfold in the future.
That's the thing.
So that's why you see a movie, you say, we see them for that film, but when people, they use one thing, be like phone like this, they do hologram. Holograms, they showed up in movies before they showed up in real life. So again, research about quantum science, everything that is not, who has researched into wormholes and all that. Einstein talked about it, but it's not gone beyond that. Trouble is that a wormhole is a concept, could be anything. But again, the research brings it back to life. And the third thing is that it's not just about what has existed, or what is happening, or what has been forgotten. It's about what you create and add to the value chain. The whole Avengers world, the Marvel Cinematic Universe does not exist. The only reality in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is Earth. That's all we know. Can you question Asgard? Now you create them. You get what I'm trying to say? So at the end of the day, beautiful presentation and all that. But you see, for me, in the industry we're in right now, the only place where people who do what you're asking for people to do right now get the visibility and get appreciated are in film festivals. Most of the movies that show...
Can I say something there?
I'll wrap up in less than a minute now. Most of the people who make the kind of films you've talked about only get the chance to show it to people and get the appreciation at festivals because many of the great films you see at festivals you never see in the cinemas. So again, it's to find that meeting ground where kudos to Genesis Cinemas. I don't have any particular thing with them, or they'll not be my guy like that, but I've seen more artistic films being distributed by Genesis than anybody else. You understand? I think if there was a quota, an intentional quota by exhibitors and distributors to intentionally push for artistic films, perhaps we could start getting closer to what you're talking about, because at the end of the day, we cannot remove the fact that money has been put into a production and the money has to come back. And from the screen process, one thing that everybody has to put in mind, when you think about, we are writing so much, think about don't write based on what you have, but with a good director who puts his treatment behind your screenplay, the screenplay on its own is not complete without a director. A director who gets the script and shoots it down is a lazy director. You have to do your director's treatment. And then a very good and professional art director can cost you more than can reduce more than half of your budget if he's very intelligent. you can reduce more than half of your budget. So in the process of writing, minus the producer that you've mentioned, the director and the art director come into play, they will tell you, you know what, don't write this out, you can achieve it without spending what you think we should spend. So I think it's a whole mix, but at the end of the day, it's show business, that's the show, and it's art, but at the end of the day, someone puts in money, and we have to be realistic about the potentials of making our money back. Thanks.
Just 1 second. Just 1 second. I just want to say, if you don't really call it art, you can call it embedded art, and it can find market beyond Nigeria. Nigeria is not the only place to sell films. That's all I have to say.
Thank you so much, Mr. Akman, and thank you, Mr.